Aquarius. This isn't about bad luck. This isn't about a crisis. This is about that quiet moment when nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels slightly misaligned. You walk into the same room, talk to the same people, live the same life, and something inside you whispers, "This doesn't fit me the way it used to." Not sadness, not boredom, just a subtle pressure in your chest, like your intuition is trying to speak before your mind is ready to listen. If you've been feeling this lately, comment "I'm ready to listen" and let yourself receive this message. Because what's changing right now isn't happening around you, it's happening within you. And once you notice it, you can't go back to who you were before. And the first sign of that change is already closer than you think. It's subtle at first. Oh, so subtle you almost dismiss it. Not a breakdown, not a dramatic moment, just a quiet awareness that keeps returning when you're not busy enough to ignore it. You sit in places that once felt like home, and now they feel neutral, not uncomfortable, just empty in a way you can't explain. Like walking into a familiar cafe and realizing the music changed, but no one else seems to notice. You're still drinking the same coffee, talking to the same people, living inside the same routines. Yet something inside you has stepped slightly to the side. And that's what makes it confusing, because nothing is obviously wrong. Your life still works on paper. It still makes sense logically. But emotionally, it feels like you're standing half a step behind yourself. You wake up without exhaustion, yet without anticipation. You move through conversations and realize halfway through that your attention drifted somewhere else, not to distraction, to observation. You start noticing how certain spaces feel quieter than they used to. Not silent, just less alive. Like the energy that once filled the room slowly packed its bags and left without announcing its departure. And you don't feel sad about it. That's the strange part. There's no grief, no anger, just a gentle sense of mismatch. As if your inner world updated its software, but your external life is still running the old version. Aquarius, this isn't loss of motivation. It's loss of resonance. Your nervous system is no longer syncing with the environment the way it used to. The jokes still land, but they don't echo. The routines still function, but they don't nourish. It's like wearing a coat that once fit perfectly and now feels just slightly too tight across the shoulders. Not enough to take it off, enough to keep adjusting it all day. And maybe the most honest part of you already knows this, because you've stopped fully relaxing in places you used to melt into. You don't sink into moments anymore. You hover inside them. There's a quiet watchfulness in you now, a sense that you're present, but not entirely inhabiting the role you're playing. You still show up. You still perform well. You still say the right things. But something deeper has begun, asking questions you didn't schedule. Not about what you're doing, but about who you're doing it as. And here's the part most people miss. This feeling doesn't mean something is wrong with your life. It means something is right with your awareness. Because only when you grow does the world start feeling slightly unfamiliar. Only when your inner landscape shifts does the outer one start looking flatter. And the discomfort isn't coming from dissatisfaction, it's coming from honesty. From the quiet realization that your emotional system is no longer being stimulated by what once felt sufficient. Not because it failed you, but because you outgrew it. And maybe the real question isn't why things feel off. Maybe it's this. When was the last time your life surprised you? Not excited you, not impressed you, but actually surprised you? When did you last feel a moment stretch inside your chest instead of simply passing through? Because Aquarius, what's emerging right now isn't boredom. It's a new sensitivity, a deeper attunement to what feels alive and what only feels familiar. And once that sensitivity turns on, you can't unfeel it. You don't become restless, you become aware. Aware of the difference between comfort and connection, between stability and meaning, between surviving your days and actually meeting them. And the first sign of that awareness is exactly this quiet feeling you can't explain. The one that keeps returning whenever everything seems fine. There's a moment when thought steps aside and something quieter takes the lead. Not a voice, not a warning, just a physical truth that arrives before language does. You feel it in the center of your chest first, not pain, more like pressure, as if the air around your heart suddenly carries weight. Your shoulders hold tension you never consciously placed there. You stretch, you breathe, you shift your posture, yet the body doesn't fully release. It's not anxiety, it's not stress in the usual sense. It's a kind of inner alert system, activating softly, like a lighthouse switching on before the storm is visible. Aquarius, you live in your mind most of the time. You analyze, you observe, you rationalize. But this time, the message isn't arriving as a thought, it's arriving as sensation, a restlessness in your muscles. That's a subtle need to rearrange your environment. You start moving objects in your space without planning to, clearing shelves, opening windows, letting go of things that once felt necessary. Not because you're bored, because your nervous system is trying to create room for a self that no longer fits inside the old layout. You find yourself avoiding certain people, not out of conflict, but out of instinct. Conversations that once flowed now feel slightly heavy, not wrong, just misaligned. And you don't have an explanation for it, which makes it harder for the mind to accept. So you call it mood, or tiredness, or just a phase. But the body doesn't operate in theories. It doesn't use excuses, it doesn't lie. It speaks in tension, in fatigue, in a breath that feels incomplete no matter how deep you inhale. Your body already knows something is shifting. It just doesn't know how to translate it into sentences yet. This is the intelligence of sensation, older than logic, quieter than thought, more honest than emotion. And here's what's beautiful about this moment. Your body isn't trying to scare you, it's trying to guide you. Every time you feel the urge to declutter, to step back, to simplify, to reduce noise, it's because your system is recalibrating, preparing for a different frequency of living. You're not becoming smaller, you're becoming more precise, more selective with your energy, more aware of what drains you, more sensitive to what feels authentic. The mind wants reasons. The body only wants alignment. It doesn't care about productivity. It cares about coherence, whether your inner state matches your outer reality. And right now, Aquarius, they're slightly out of sync. So your body whispers through sensation, through subtle discomfort, through a quiet desire for space. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something is ready to change. And maybe the real question isn't what are you moving away from, but this. What is your body quietly trying to move you toward? Not in words, not in plans, not in goals, but in feeling, in breath, in the way your chest responds to certain thoughts and softens around others. Because your body is already listening to a future your mind hasn't caught up with yet. And it's asking you gently, without pressure, without urgency. Are you willing to trust a message you cannot explain yet, but somehow already recognize as true? At some point, you start noticing it in the spaces between people, not in what they say, but in how long it takes them to say it. The replies arrive slower, the pauses feel longer, the conversations end without really landing anywhere. And at first, you try to explain it logically. Everyone is busy, life is complicated, people drift. But this feels different. It's not distance, it's a subtle absence of resonance. You're still welcome, still included, still treated kindly. Yet something essential is missing. The sense of being truly met. It's like sitting across from someone you once knew deeply and realizing the silence between you has changed texture, not awkward, just empty. And the strangest part is this. You don't feel angry about it. You don't feel hurt in the dramatic sense. You just feel quiet. It's a quiet that comes with awareness. Aquarius, this is one of the most disorienting moments in a human life. When the world doesn't reject you, it simply stops mirroring who you are becoming. People who once leaned on your presence now lean elsewhere. Not because you failed them, but because the version of you they connected to has gently stepped aside. You begin to realize that some connections existed because you were still searching for yourself, still open in a certain way, still available to dynamics that no longer fit your nervous system. And now, without consciously deciding anything, you've shifted. Your energy feels more inward, more contained, more selective, not closed, just precise. You no longer perform the same emotional roles. You no longer adapt as easily to frequencies that feel noisy. You listen differently. You respond slower. You choose silence more often than explanation. So the field around you adjusts. Some people feel it immediately. They step back instinctively, not in rejection, but in recognition. Because resonance is not a choice. It's a natural law. Two instruments stop vibrating together, not because one is broken, but because one has tuned itself to a new key. And here is the truth most people never say out loud. Growing does not always feel expansive. Sometimes it feels like being gently removed from rooms you once thought were home. There is grief in that. even if nothing dramatic happened, even if no one is at fault, even if everything looks fine on the surface. It is the grief of outgrowing invisible agreements, the kind you never consciously signed, but lived inside for years. Aquarius. 8. You are especially sensitive to this phase. Because you do not attach easily, but when you do, you attach at the level of mind and meaning. And when meaning dissolves, the connection fades quietly, without conflict. No arguments, no closure conversations. Just a gradual thinning of shared reality. And that can feel lonely. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of standing in a new inner landscape before anyone else has arrived. Yet this is not abandonment, it is recalibration. You are not being left behind, you are being left unmirrored. And those are very different experiences. One wounds your identity, the other reveals it. Because now, without the familiar reflections, you begin to sense yourself more clearly, your actual rhythm, your true emotional pace, your real interests when no one is watching. This is the phase where your soul becomes audible again, not through noise, not through attention, but through subtle alignment. And maybe the question is not, why are people drifting away? But this, who are you becoming that no longer needs to be understood by everyone in order to feel real? Because sometimes, Aquarius, the deepest form of belonging is not being surrounded. It is being accurate to who you are, even if it means standing alone for a while, in a frequency the old world cannot yet hear. There comes a moment when you look at your own life the way you would look at someone else's, not with judgment, not with regret, just with a strange kind of distance. You notice how your days are arranged, the routines that carry you from morning to night, the responsibilities that fit together neatly, like furniture chosen years ago for a version of you who needed different things. Everything works, nothing is collapsing, nothing is obviously wrong, and yet, when you sit quietly inside it, your heart does not fully arrive. It's like wearing a well-tailored suit that no longer matches the shape of your body. It still looks respectable. It still protects you from the cold. But you feel the restriction in small, constant ways. Aquarius, this is one of the most honest crossroads. Not the dramatic kind where life falls apart, but the quiet kind where life succeeds without your soul being truly involved. You wake up and complete your tasks. You meet expectations. You move through relationships that feel familiar and stable. And from the outside, it all looks like maturity. But inside, curiosity has gone silent, not dead, just waiting. The conversations repeat themselves, the goals feel inherited, the dreams feel archived rather than alive. You are not unhappy, you are underexpressed. And that can be harder to recognize than pain, because pain demands change, but comfort invites you to stay. This is the subtle danger for people who are intelligent and capable. You can build a life that functions beautifully without ever asking if it still belongs to you. You adapt, you optimize, you make it work. And one day, you realize you have become very good at living a life you no longer feel inside. There is no explosion, no crisis, just a growing sense that your inner world has evolved faster than your external reality. Your values have shifted, your tolerance for shallow patterns has decreased, your need for meaning has deepened, but the structures around you remain frozen in an earlier version of time. So you begin to feel like a guest in your own success, polite, grateful, but not rooted. This is not failure, Aquarius. This is misalignment, the kind that happens when you keep honoring old decisions out of loyalty to who you used to be. And loyalty can be beautiful, but it can also quietly imprison you inside an identity that has already completed its purpose. Here is something most people over 35 rarely admit: that stability does not always mean truth. Sometimes it only means familiarity, and familiarity can become a form of emotional anesthesia. You stop feeling deeply because nothing challenges your inner expansion. So you become efficient, reliable, respected, but no longer surprised by your own existence. And that is the real question now. Not whether your life is good, but whether it still feels alive to you. Because the most dangerous thing is not losing everything. It is keeping everything while slowly losing yourself inside it. Aquarius, the universe does not always shake your world to wake you up. Sometimes it simply withdraws your sense of belonging until you notice the absence, not to punish you, but to remind you that growth is not about burning bridges. It is about outgrowing structures that were built for a version of you who no longer lives here. And the quiet invitation is this: what part of your life still reflects who you are now? and what part only reflects who you used to be. Because once you see that difference, you cannot unsee it. And slowly, without urgency, your soul will begin asking for a reality that finally feels like it is speaking your current language. There is a softer kind of shift that happens when nothing around you seems to move, yet something inside you quietly steps back. You notice it in the way you listen now, not searching for openings to respond, not preparing arguments in your mind, just letting words pass through you without urgency. The need to be right fades. The need to explain fades. Even the need to be seen begins to loosen its grip. And at first, this feels unfamiliar, almost like you are disappearing from a role you once played very well. But you are not disappearing. You are dissolving an old posture. Aquarius, this is one of the most misunderstood phases of inner evolution. People call it burnout, they call it detachment, they call it loss of passion. But what it really is the moment your identity stops being built from reaction. You no longer want to push against the world. You no longer feel compelled to convince anyone of your value. You no longer measure yourself through the mirror of other people's expectations. Not because you are numb, but because your sense of self has become quieter and deeper. It is like moving from speaking to breathing. There is a peace that enters you here, not the dramatic kind, the grounded kind, the kind that does not announce itself. You realize you are less interested in being impressive and more interested in being honest with yourself. You start choosing silence over performance, depth over visibility, presence over validation. And this can feel confusing, especially in a world that rewards constant expression. But this is not withdrawal, this is integration. Your nervous system is no longer living in comparison mode. Your soul is no longer negotiating for space. You simply exist more fully inside your own boundaries. This is what an identity shift actually feels like. Not a crisis, not a breakdown, but a gentle release of the need to be someone specific. The old version of you was built to survive certain environments, certain expectations, certain emotional climates. It learned how to adapt, how to translate itself, how to be useful, acceptable, understandable, and it did its job. But now something else is emerging, a version of you that does not need to earn its place, a version that does not need to argue for its reality, a version that feels comfortable being undefined. This is why you feel less reactive, less triggered, less interested in external drama. You are not disengaged from life. You are finally aligned with yourself. And that changes everything. The world still exists. The challenges still exist. But you are no longer organizing your identity around them. You meet experiences from a quieter center, from a place that does not need to defend its existence. This is the phase where your inner authority becomes real, not loud, not controlling, just rooted. You trust your perceptions without broadcasting them. You know what you feel without explaining it. You honor your boundaries without announcing them. This is a rare kind of maturity, the kind that does not seek applause, only coherence. And here is the gentle question that floats through this space. If no one needed you to be anything anymore, who would you naturally become? Because that is the version forming now, not built from pressure, not shaped by expectation, but emerging from your own internal gravity. Aquarius, this is not the end of who you were. It is the completion of a chapter. The old self does not disappear. It simply steps aside with gratitude, having delivered you safely to a deeper layer of truth. And in that quiet handover, without ceremony, without witnesses, you begin to live from a place that finally feels like home. Not because the world changed, but because you no longer need to leave yourself to belong anywhere. There is a particular kind of awareness that feels less like knowing, and more like remembering something you were born with. Not information, not opinion. A quiet sensitivity to patterns beneath the surface of things. Aquarius, you have always felt this. Even as a child, even before you had language for it, you walk into a room and sense the emotional weather before anyone speaks. You feel when a system is pretending to function, when a conversation is moving but not actually going anywhere. Not because you are judgmental, but because your nervous system is tuned to coherence. You notice when people repeat roles instead of expressing truth, when structures stay alive out of habit rather than meaning, when something is technically successful but spiritually hollow. And this sensitivity does not shout, it hums. A low-frequency awareness that something is off long before it becomes visible. Most people need external events to wake them up. A breakup, a crisis, a collapse. But you feel the misalignment before it breaks. You feel it while it still looks stable, while everything appears fine. This is why your awakenings rarely come with drama. They come with fatigue, a deep tiredness of pretending that what is around you is enough. Not because you want more, but because you can feel what is missing. Aquarius is ruled by future consciousness. You sense where things are going before others even realize they are moving. You pick up on shifts in collective energy, on social undercurrents, on emotional climates that have not yet formed words. So when a system becomes rigid, repetitive, predictable, you feel it in your body like static. Not boredom, not restlessness, a subtle resistance to living in a loop that no longer evolves. You are not impatient. You are allergic to stagnation. This is why you often become tired before others, not physically, existentially. You grow weary of conversations that never deepen, of goals that only circle around status, of environments that reward performance over presence. And while others may still feel entertained by the surface, you are already touching the emptiness underneath. So you begin to pull away inwardly, not dramatically, just quietly disengaging from emotional contracts that no longer feel true. You stop investing energy where growth has paused. You stop participating in illusions that once felt comforting, not out of rebellion, out of integrity, because something inside you cannot pretend for long. You are designed to detect when reality becomes a simulation, when people live inside identities rather than experiences, when systems maintain themselves without serving the soul. And this awareness can feel isolating, because it does not come with immediate answers, only with an inner signal that says this is no longer aligned. So you often leave first, emotionally, energetically, before your external life catches up. You withdraw your presence from places that still look functional, but no longer feel alive. This is why your transformations seem sudden to others. But for you, they have been brewing quietly for years. You did not change overnight. You simply reached a point where your inner truth became louder than your tolerance for staying. And here is the gentle paradox. You awaken early, not because you are ahead, but because you cannot ignore what you feel. You are not more evolved. You are more sensitive to misalignment. You cannot live long inside structures that ask you to fragment yourself, to mute your depth, to flatten your awareness. So you become the one who leaves first, the one who questions first, the one who feels tired before anyone admits exhaustion. And maybe the real question is this: what do you sense now that others have not yet noticed? Because that quiet discomfort you feel is not anxiety. It is information, your inner compass responding to a world that is slowly revealing where it no longer matches your frequency. And while it may feel lonely to be the first to feel it, it is also a gift. The gift of not waking up one day in a life that has already outgrown you. There is a quiet realization that settles in you one evening, not like panic, not like urgency, but like a slow light turning on in a dark room. You notice that the idea of change does not frighten you anymore. It almost feels familiar, even comforting. What unsettles you is something else entirely, the image of time standing still around you, of seasons passing while your inner world remains untouched, of waking up years from now with the same questions, the same emotional weight, the same unspoken dissatisfaction. That is the thought that tightens your chest. You are not afraid of losing what you have built. You are afraid of outgrowing it and pretending you have not. You can imagine starting over, learning new rhythms, letting go of certain identities. What you cannot imagine is staying in a place that no longer reflects your inner movement. Aquarius, your fear is not about instability. It is about inertia, not about falling, but about never moving again. You have already lived long enough to know this. Most people do not suffer because life is hard. They suffer because life becomes repetitive, predictable, emotionally flat. They wake up and repeat gestures that once meant something. They speak words that once carried desire. They live inside structures that once felt purposeful, and nothing collapses, which is the problem. There is no clear signal to leave, no dramatic ending, just a slow erosion of presence. You, however, feel this before it becomes visible. You sense when your days begin to echo themselves, when your curiosity quiets down, when your inner questions stop evolving. That is when the real fear enters, not the fear of change, but the fear of becoming emotionally absent inside a life that looks fine, the fear of surviving instead of living, of functioning instead of feeling, of existing without being moved by your own existence. This is why the idea of staying scares you more than any unknown future, because staying means negotiating with your own truth, diluting your inner voice, convincing yourself that comfort is enough, and deep down, you know it is not. Stagnation does not scream, it whispers. It tells you to be grateful, to not ask for too much, to accept what works and ignore what feels empty. But your soul does not speak the language of efficiency. It speaks the language of aliveness. It wants movement, expansion, uncertainty with meaning. And when those disappear, you begin to feel like a guest in your own timeline, watching your life continue without your full participation. That is the true risk for someone like you. Not failing, not losing, not even being alone, but slowly becoming emotionally invisible to yourself. So when you feel restless, when you feel that subtle urgency inside your chest, it is not anxiety. It is memory. Your deeper self, remembering what it feels like to be engaged with life, to feel challenged by your own growth, to not know what comes next, to be curious about your own future again. And here is the gentle question that lives underneath it all. If nothing around you changed for the next 5 years, would you still feel alive inside your own story? Not safe, not successful, alive. Because for you, Aquarius, its safety without evolution feels like quiet suffocation, and you would rather face uncertainty than slowly lose your capacity to feel wonder. You would rather be a beginner again than an expert in a life that no longer inspires you. So, the fear you feel is not weakness, it is discernment, the awareness that time is precious, that consciousness wants to expand, that your soul did not come here to remain static. And maybe the deepest courage is not daring to change. It is daring to admit when staying has become the more dangerous choice. There is a gentler way this all resolves, not with decisions, not with announcements, not with dramatic shifts that force you to become someone overnight. It resolves in a quieter place, the moment you stop arguing with your own perception. You do not need to run. You do not need to break anything open. You do not need to reinvent your entire life to prove that you have changed. What you need is something far more subtle and far more honest. You need to stop dismissing what you already know, that quiet sensation you carry through your days, the one you keep explaining away, the one you keep labeling as temporary or irrelevant or unrealistic. That is not noise. That is your inner reality asking to be acknowledged. Aquarius, you have spent years being mentally flexible, emotionally intelligent, and able to see multiple perspectives at once. So you learned how to negotiate with yourself, how to downplay your own signals, how to stay functional even when something inside felt unresolved. You became very good at being okay. But being okay is not the same as being aligned. And alignment does not demand immediate action. It only asks for presence, to sit with your feelings without correcting them, to notice your resistance without justifying it, to allow discomfort without turning it into a problem to solve. This is where real change begins, not in motion, in recognition. The moment you stop telling yourself you should feel different, the moment you stop forcing gratitude where there is quiet grief, the moment you let yourself say, internally, without shame, I am not the same person I used to be. Nothing has to happen after that. No plan, no timeline, no external shift, just the truth being allowed to exist inside you. This is the part most people skip, because it feels unproductive, because it offers no visible progress, because it cannot be measured or shared. But this is the moment where your nervous system finally exhales, when you stop pretending to be stable in a reality that no longer feels true, when you stop maintaining emotional roles that no longer fit your inner shape, when you stop performing acceptance instead of feeling authenticity. You begin to hear yourself again, not the voice that adapts, the one that knows. And that voice does not rush. It does not demand. It does not pressure. It simply says, quietly, this matters. This is why you do not need to make sudden changes. Because any action taken without inner honesty only recreates the same pattern in a new environment. You could leave everything today and still carry the same unacknowledged self into the future. But if you stay present with what you feel now, if you let your inner experience become valid, something else happens. Your decisions start forming organically. Your boundaries become clearer. Your desires reorganize themselves, not from fear, from coherence. And this is the most healing realization of all. You do not have to chase transformation. It is already unfolding inside your awareness every time you choose not to numb yourself, every time you stop minimizing your intuition, every time you allow silence to tell you something real. You are changing, not externally, but fundamentally. And maybe the only question left is this. That's if you stopped convincing yourself that everything is fine, what would your inner world finally feel safe enough to tell you? Because that answer is already present. Waiting patiently, not for action, but for permission. The deepest shifts do not begin with movement. They begin with listening. And the moment you stop ignoring yourself, even gently, even imperfectly, your life begins to rearrange itself around a truth that no longer needs to hide. Not because you forced it, but because you finally let it be real. And maybe this is the part no one ever told you about, Aquarius, that the real breakthrough does not arrive like lightning. It arrives like a quiet recognition. A soft click inside your chest that says, I am finally listening. Not to the world, not to expectations, not even to fear, but to the part of you that has always known what feels true and what only feels familiar. You were never lost. You were just living in a version of yourself that had already expired. And there is no shame in that. There is only growth. Because every season of your life taught you something essential. Even the ones that felt confusing. Even the ones that felt stagnant. Even the ones where you stayed longer than you should have. They were not mistakes. They were training. Training your perception, your intuition, your capacity to feel beyond what is visible. And now, you stand at a softer threshold. Not a dramatic ending, not a radical beginning. Just a gentle shift in frequency. Where you no longer need to prove who you are. Where you no longer need to explain why you feel different. And where you no longer need permission to trust your own evolution. This is what awakening actually feels like. Not explosive, but steady. Like coming home to yourself without making a sound. So, if something inside you felt seen tonight, if a quiet part of you felt understood, let me ask you something, just between us. What truth about yourself are you finally ready to stop hiding from? You do not need to answer out loud, but if you feel called to, leave it in the comments, not for validation, but as a small act of honesty with yourself. And if this space feels safe to you, if this voice feels like a mirror, not a lecture, stay with this journey, subscribe, come back. Let the messages find you when you are ready. Because this is not the end of your story. It is the moment your story starts being real. Trust yourself. Even when it feels unfamiliar, especially when it feels unfamiliar. The next message is already forming, and when it arrives, it will meet a version of you that is no longer pretending, just becoming.